They found the town where maps went to die on a Tuesday that smelled like rain and copper. Elias Mercer had spent his entire adult life chasing mistakes, not human mistakes, the cartographic ones. He was a historical geographer at a small but well-funded research institute in Boston, a man who believed that every inaccurate coastline, every misplaced river bend, every vanished settlement told a story about power, fear, ambition, or hope. He specialized in phantom towns, those places that appeared on maps for decades before quietly disappearing, as if the earth had inhaled and swallowed them whole. When a graduate intern slid a brittle 1872 rail survey across his desk, Elias assumed it would be another minor anomaly. The map detailed a proposed rail extension stretching west from Kansas City toward the Colorado Territory. The line itself had never been built. That was normal. But about halfway along the projected route, between two modest creeks, was a carefully inked town labeled simply Arbor Hollow. It was drawn with unusual confidence. Grid streets, a courthouse square, even a rail depot sketched in faint graphite beneath the ink. Elias frowned. He knew nearly every failed frontier settlement in that corridor. Arbor Hollow was not one of them. He cross-referenced county records. Nothing. Census reports from 1870 and 1880. Nothing. Land grants, homestead filings, church registries. Nothing. It was as if the mapmaker had imagined an entire town, complete with civic infrastructure, and then neglected to tell anyone. The intern, a sharp-eyed woman named Priya Rao, leaned over his shoulder. Maybe it was speculative. Developers did that, right? Drew towns before they existed? They did, Elias replied, tapping the paper. But not like this. Look at the shading. Look at the drainage patterns. This isn't speculative optimism. This is observation. He traced a fingertip over a tiny inked symbol north of the town, a grove of trees carefully rendered, each canopy shaded in moss-green pigment. The grove was labeled in smaller script, The Crown. Priya smiled faintly. That sounds poetic. It sounds deliberate, Elias said. 3 weeks later, they stood in western Kansas under a sky so large it felt accusatory. The GPS coordinates derived from the old survey placed Arbor Hollow in what was now a stretch of private ranch land punctuated by wind turbines and winter wheat. The landowner, an aging cattleman named Roy Calder, had reluctantly granted them access after Elias explained he was researching historic settlement patterns. "You won't find nothing," Roy had said, "just dirt and old fence posts. This land's been in my wife's family since 1919. Elias believed him, but he also believed in sediment, in the way Earth remembers what humans tried to forget. They began with ground-penetrating radar. Priya methodically walked transects while Elias monitored the laptop display. The prairie wind hissed through dry grass, and somewhere in the distance, a turbine blade rotated with a low mechanical sigh. At first, the subsurface scans showed the usual: roots, stones, animal burrows. Then, beneath 6 feet of soil, a rectangle appeared. Clean angles, repeating patterns. "Elias," Priya whispered. The rectangle wasn't alone. As they scanned further, more shapes emerged. Parallel lines consistent with foundations, a large square that could have been a central building, and what appeared to be a linear trench extending east-west, exactly where the map indicated the rail spur. Roy stood behind them, hat in hand. "You're telling me there's a whole town under my pasture?" Elias didn't answer. He was staring at the data, heart pounding. The earth was remembering. Excavation permits took months. Funding proposals took longer. By the time the first official dig began, Arbor Hollow had already captured the imagination of historians and conspiracy theorists alike. News outlets dubbed it America's Lost Grid. Social media christened it the Buried City. The initial trench revealed brickwork, not crude frontier brick, but precisely fired, uniform, and stamped with a maker's mark, HM & Co. 1871. Priya crouched beside the exposed wall. "That's not a homestead, that's industrial." They uncovered a street, wooden planks preserved in anaerobic clay, a fragment of porcelain, a child's tin whistle. The objects were not scattered like the detritus of a failed settlement. They were arranged, as if abandoned in an orderly departure. In the center of the grid, they found the courthouse, or what would have been. Its foundation was reinforced with iron brackets more typical of East Coast municipal buildings. In the basement level, sealed by a collapsed stairwell, lay something stranger, a chamber. It was circular, unlike the rectilinear logic of the town above. Its walls were lined with polished limestone blocks, each carved with symbols that were neither decorative nor entirely recognizable. They resembled botanical diagrams fused with astronomical charts. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal of dark wood, preserved by dryness. On it rested a glass cylinder, thick and clouding with age. Inside the cylinder was a map. Elias lifted it with trembling hands.
The parchment was unlike any he had seen, thin as onion skin but remarkably intact. It did not depict Kansas. It did not depict North America. It depicted the world, but wrong. The continents were subtly shifted, the Great Lakes elongated like grasping fingers, the Rocky Mountains arced eastward. In the Pacific, where no land should exist, a vast continent sprawled, labeled in careful script, Ossidia. Priya exhaled slowly. "This is a hoax." "No," Elias said. "It's older than the town." Carbon dating would later suggest the parchment fibers originated in the early 1700s. The ink composition matched no known commercial formula from the American frontier. The symbols carved into the limestone walls echoed motifs found in obscure Renaissance-era scientific manuscripts, studies of magnetism, tidal forces, and celestial mechanics. Arbor Hollow, it seems, had been built around this map, not the other way around. As news spread, federal agencies took interest. The chamber was cordoned off. Researchers from multiple universities descended upon the site. Among them was Dr. Helen Ward, a geophysicist known for her controversial theory that Earth's magnetic poles had shifted far more frequently in human history than mainstream models allowed. Helen studied the map in silence for a long time. "If this is a projection of a previous magnetic configuration," she murmured, "then Ossidia might not be fiction. It might be a landmass that existed when sea levels were lower or when tectonic stress redistributed differently." Elias shook his head. "You're suggesting this is a memory of Earth from before recorded history?" "I'm suggesting," Helen said carefully, "that someone in the 1700s believed it was." The town's layout began to make sense in unsettling ways. The orientation of Arbor Hollow streets did not align with true north. They aligned with magnetic north, as it would have been if the poles were offset by several degrees. The circular chamber beneath the courthouse sat precisely at the town's geomagnetic center. Priya pulled up satellite data. "Look at this." The grove labeled The Crown still existed, a cluster of old-growth cottonwoods untouched by farming. When overlaid with geomagnetic anomaly maps, the grove sat atop a subtle but measurable distortion in Earth's field. They hiked to the grove at dusk. The trees rose like sentinels, their bark ridged and dark. The air felt heavier there, as if sound itself hesitated. Elias stepped into the clearing and felt it, a faint pressure behind his eyes, a hum in his teeth. Helen unpacked her portable magnetometer. The readings spiked erratically. "This isn't normal variation," she whispered. At the center of the grove lay a depression in the soil, circular and shallow. Priya brushed away leaves and revealed a ring of stones arranged with deliberate spacing. Each stone bore the same carved symbols found in the underground chamber. "They built a field stabilizer," Helen said, almost to herself. "For what?" Roy asked, his voice unsteady. Helen looked toward the horizon, where turbines turned lazily. "To anchor something." The first disappearance occurred 2 nights later.